All right, so I'm back. The ice cream base is in the refrigerator. I've gone ahead and done the dishes that I made by making the ice cream base so that I don't have a huge mess when everything is all said and done. And I've put together the flour and the confectioner sugar that go into the crust of the lemon bars. Lemon bars have a crust, obviously, and they have a lemon curd that goes on top and usually some kind of glaze on top. And you know what the texture of a lemon bar is like, almost sort of like a tart, good crisp pastry with that really rich lemon curd. But here's the thing, when you're making ice cream, things freeze. And if you can imagine what it would be like to bite into a frozen tart, well, it's kind of going to feel like you're about to break your teeth, which I don't want to speak for you, but for me personally, that's not something I enjoy when I'm having dessert. So what the Salt and Straw cookbook recommends is that when you're making things to mix into your ice cream, you have to make them ice cream friendly. Something that's going to absorb the cream of the ice cream, something that's going to be a little bit fluffier than your average baked good. So there's a wonderful recipe for snickerdoodles that go into the ice cream, and rather than your usual snickerdoodle cookie, the Salt and Straw book has you put in a little bit of extra baking powder or baking soda, I forget which it is, a little bit extra cream of tartar, that kind of thing. So we're looking to leaven our pastry. So I've got a cup of flour and a quarter cup of confectioner sugar in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a quarter teaspoon of salt. And let's close this up. No one likes to have a container of salt fall all over the floor. And I'm also going to put in a half tablespoon. I love having a half tablespoon measurer rather than having to count out a teaspoon and a half. So I'm going to put in a half tablespoon of the baking powder. Okay. And not coincidentally at all, that is essentially the recipe to make self-rising flour. If you don't have self-rising flour, you take a cup of flour and you put in the salt and the baking powder just like I did. But here's the next step in this process where things could go really terrifically wrong is, are we going to get a tart type of pastry, or am I going to have a gigantic gloppy pancake with some lemon curd on top of it? So that's another thing that we're not going to find out about for a little while. There's one other thing that goes into the lemon bar crust, and that's a stick of butter. I like to cut up my butter into small pats before I add it, and then I stick it in the freezer for about 5 minutes so that it's really cold. So there's the butter going into this flour and sugar and, of course, baking soda and salt concoction. And I've got my pastry cutter here, and we're going to cut the butter into the dry ingredients. And we're looking for the butter to be, coated entirely with the flour and more or less about the size of, peas or barley or, anything else sort of pebbly like that. And then once we've got that, we're going to put it into an 8x8 pan, and we're going to bake the crust. So you can see kind of what the texture of that is like, little bits of gravel sort of, and the goal is that it shouldn't taste like gravel, but I guess we'll find out. And with a tart crust, you don't roll it out like you do with a pie crust. You instead just pour it into the pan and you press it in until it's evenly distributed. And you'll see that it gets a little bit, matted on the bottom. That's what makes it come together. So you have, the powdered sugar kind of condense into itself. You want to give some sides to this so that the lemon curd isn't just oozing off the bars on the very edge. So, I like to kind of smush the crust against the sides just a little bit. And I don't worry about making it too completely even. I mean, you'll see I've got kind of fingerprints in here. It looks a little bit like, footsteps on the beach or something like that. I'm also seeing that the sun is coming in from the back room and that this is all very, very backlit, so it's quite conceivable that this looks like nothing at all other than a haze of sun, but hopefully my ongoing description is amusing and illuminating. So, all right, so this is more or less condensed and I've talked enough. So I'm going to put this into the oven, and the next thing we're going to do is make the lemon curd while the crust is baking and after I've washed raw dough off of my hands. All right, the crust of the lemon bars is in the oven. It's at 350. It goes for 15 minutes. We currently have 8.5 minutes left. I always feel like the making of the lemon curd is kind of a race against the clock. Not that it has to go on the very instant the crust comes out of the oven, but it is kind of fun to think of it as a race against the clock. And you'll notice that my camera setup is at a different angle. It's not just because I've closed the door so that everything isn't backlit, it's also because it occurs to me that having my laptop resting on top of the stove while the oven is at 350 degrees might not be the wisest idea. So what we've got here is there's a cup of sugar, a couple of tablespoons of flour, and half a teaspoon of baking powder are the the dry ingredients for the lemon curd. I've also got 2 eggs which I've beaten. Let's move this angle a little bit so that you can see what's going on. There they are. They're in this bowl. Fork is resting on top of them so I can beat them some more. And I've got this monster lemon here. So it needs both the zest and the juice of the lemon. Don't make the rookie mistake that I used to make of juicing the lemon first and then attempting to zest it. It does not work. It will be very frustrating. Instead, if you've got a microplane, I like to use the microplane, even though it's a little bit flimsy, it'll sort of bend a little bit as you zest. Just, hold the microplane over your bowl and rub the lemon back and forth over it, and you're grating the lemon zest. So once I've got this all grated, which you don't need to see that whole tormented process, I'll also juice the lemon, squeeze the juice of the lemon into there, add the eggs, and then we'll have our lemon curd ready to put on top of our tart, fresh out of the oven. Well, the lemon is zested, and my wrists are still intact despite all of that hard work. And you can see there's a fair amount of lemon zest in here. So now we're going to juice the lemon. And here's the thing, is you really don't want to put more than 2 tablespoons of lemon juice into the lemon curd. I mean, we're trying to have dessert here. We're not actually trying to eat a lemon as part of our after dinner treat. So I don't juice the lemon directly into that sugar mixture. Instead, I've got a mason jar. I actually have 2 mason jars. I've got a mason jar for lemon juice and a mason jar for lime juice. I got tired of trying to figure out which is which, so I put a loop of butcher twine around the lime juice. Twine rhymes with lime. And that way I don't accidentally have lemon margaritas or lime sidecars. This lemon is so enormous that I'm actually going to have to cut it, I think, into 1/8. I mean, this is a lemon squeezer. I don't know, maybe this is like a half grapefruit or something. But so I'm going to squeeze it just directly into the mason jar, and then, once it's squeezed, I'll take out about 2-ish tablespoons and throw it into that mixture. There's another reason that you don't want to squeeze your whole lemon right into the mixture, and that's because you're going to need a little bit of lemon juice for the glaze that goes on top of the lemon bars. So, another rookie mistake, I used to squeeze my lemon directly in. It was always a little bit too much lemon, and then I'd get to the glaze part and whoops, no more lemon. So, you learn a lot after you mess up lemon bars a bunch of times in a row. All right, I've got my lemon juice in here. I'm going to give the eggs another little whisk and throw those in. Throw this in the sink. Oh, did not beat the clock. That's because I usually do not keep up a running dialogue while I'm making lemon bars. So let's take a look actually quickly at what we've got here. Grabbing a hot pad, And here's the crust. It really does not look bad at all. I mean, it's maybe a little bit more spongy than what I'm accustomed to, but that was kind of the point, wasn't it? So I'm going to finish stirring this up. We can take a break while I do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like, pour it onto the crust, and bake it all together. All right, this is pretty nicely mixed up now. It's got, just that right pale yellow kind of, not exactly jelly, not exactly syrup. I don't know, do you call this lemon curd? I suspect that that is a technical term and I should not be permitted to use it. So let's call it lemon filling. And I'm just going to pour it right on top of that crust. I see there are a couple of little globs where the sugar did not get fully dissolved. So, that's unfortunate, but that's the nice thing about putting stuff in the oven is that heat melts things. Sugar is a thing. Heat will melt it. And let's just sort of make sure that we've got it kind of evenly distributed here. I mean, you can maybe kind of see how there's one side where the crust went all the way up the side and another side where it's not so much. But, this is rustic homemade stuff. So I'm going to put it in the oven 20-ish minutes or so. And while that's happening, I'll quickly make the glaze. When it gets toward the end of the process, I mean, you don't want the glaze sitting around forever. And then soon enough, we'll be ready to cool these and see if they're any good. The lemon bars have just come out of the oven. You can see, the crust is kind of that classic golden brown. The curd is puffed up a little bit caramelized on top, and it's not jiggling around anymore. And so I'm going to turn the oven off here and make the glaze. You want to put the glaze on while it's still warm. So I've got 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar, and I've got the lemon juice. Now, recipes will say, use a tablespoon of lemon juice, use 2 tablespoons. You don't really know how much lemon juice you're going to use. You want it to look like a glaze. And everyone knows what a glaze looks like, right? So I'm just going to pour some in, and I'm going to stir it around, and you can see how immediately, the confectioner's sugar right away just starts melting into the lemon juice. Let's get a little bit of a closer look. So I've just poured in, hopefully not too much here, and you can see that the sugar just completely dissolves. You have a couple of little clumps of sugar, but nothing that a little bit of stirring won't take care of. And now you've got a liquidy glaze. So I'm going to spread it over the lemon bars themselves, just a little bit at a time. And my concern with this is I'm going to be crumbling up the lemon bars into the ice cream. All right, and so is the glaze really going to work, or do we just want some pastry and some lemon curd in the ice cream? So I'm going to make sure to leave at least some of this unglazed. I'm not going to cover every single square inch. And of course, when you're crumbling something up, you don't have to use every part of it anyway. So we'll see how it goes. If I feel a little bit shy about putting the glazed stuff into the ice cream when it comes time, I just won't. So I'm going to let these cool, and then I'll be back to taste it and give you my verdict. Well, it's time for the moment of truth, or for one of the moments of truth. I'm going to cut a row of lemon bars and have a taste, see how these guys turned out. Well, the good news, first off, is that they are coming out of the pan, and a little crumbly, but they're not sticking to the bottom of the pan. So this does not look like much of anything as it stands. It looks kind of like a mess, but the first piece is always a little bit of an adventure. The taste is just what I'd expect. The crust is holding together. I can hear a crunch inside my own head if I'm chewing. I don't know that that transmits anywhere except inside my own head. But pretty good. So next step is tomorrow. I'm gonna put the ice cream base into the machine and layer in those lemon bars once it's frozen, and then that'll be our next moment of truth, see whether these things can in fact mix into an ice cream.